Hello and welcome to this episode of Straight to the Point. And let's get straight to the point. I'm Shujoy Gupta. The proposed Unity Mall and the Prashashan's thumb at Chimbel will now be moved out. After 44 days of sustained protests by the villagers, the government has finally given a written assurance of halting this project at the Toyar Lake site in Chimbel. What began as a local agitation has now ended with an official confirmation in black and white. And this is how the people of Chimbel made the government think again, bend a bit, and realize that people power is more important than the people in power. Chimbel is a village that refused to move aside. It is not a loud village. It is not a village of television studios or prime-time debates. It's a village of fields, of nature, of wetlands, of memory, and of quiet resilience. And yet in late 2025 and early 2026, Chimbel became the site of one of the most determined people's agitations that Goa has ever witnessed against the proposed Unity Mall planned on the fragile Toyar Lake wetland. This was not a spontaneous outburst. This was not manufactured outrage. This was resistance built slowly but surely. Resolution by resolution, meeting by meeting, protest by protest. And why did the people protest? Not for their own lands, not for their own future, not for their own personal future, but the future of Goa, the future of their village. And at the heart of this resistance were faces that refused to step back. Faces like Ajay Kholkar, who was not there for a press photo, not there for one rally, but day after day holding the agitation together like many others. These are heroes that need to be named, who are not named otherwise. Faces like Govind Shirodkar, what a battle that this man has fought, who carried the battle to institutions, to courts, and to biodiversity frameworks, ensuring that the fight was not just emotional, but legally grounded. Facts played a big role as much as emotion did. And behind them, hundreds of villagers, young, old, men, women, all of them, they refused to be treated as an inconvenience. They refused to bend. They refused to let go. Now we come to this whole concept of they being called anti-development. Let's be clear. Chimbel did not reject development. Chimbel rejected imposed development against environmental necessities and against facts that stare at you in the face that you cannot have a project like this in the middle of a wetland. What triggered the agitation? To understand why this really happened, let us go back and look deeper. The Chimbel village panchayat had passed 3 Gram Sabha resolutions rejecting the Unity Mall project, a clear expression of people's will. Isn't that what Gram Sabhas are supposed to do? The Chimbel village panchayat unanimously resolved to reject the application for the issuance of any construction license for the Unity Mall, asserting that the panchayat area lacked the infrastructural support. And that is very important, including water supply, sanitation, and that it would effectively and really affect the wetland and the local ecology. This is something that became a big challenge. The government at that point of time refused to bend. Multiple Gram Sabha resolutions were then passed, rejecting the proposal outright, underscoring that the villagers did not consent to the project and it conflicted with their ecology and their long-term interests, their future, the future of the children. While various media accounts confirm that these resolutions explicitly opposed and they were put in writing, but these resolutions were unfortunately rejected. These resolutions highlighted that they lacked infrastructure, that the wetland Toyar Lake would get severely impacted, biodiversity and livelihoods of indigenous and tribal people would get affected. None of these concerns managed to bend the powers that be who wanted this project at any cost. Despite this, The town and country planning department, in spite of these resolutions, issued a construction license, a move that villagers saw as an imposition. That was the last straw. It is a direct affront to their fight to save their ecology, their rights. After the panchayats and the Gram Sabha rejected the project, the TCP issued a technical clearance on August 1st, 2025. Way back in August 2025, the technical clearance was given, signaling that from the planning department perspective, the proposal met all the technical criteria. This is what the TCP's stand was, notwithstanding any of these local objections. Now look what the block development officer did. The block development officer responsible for the development of the block according to people's will and according to local interests. He challenged the panchayat's refusal and directed the Chimbel village panchayat to issue a construction license against the people's will within 24 hours, effectively overturning the people's rejection. This is important. After that, the deputy director of panchayats got in, and this is what he did. He dismissed the panchayat's appeal, upholding the block development officer's order and pushing the panchayat to grant permission. So the block development officer overturned the panchayat resolution, the Gram Sabha resolution. It went to the deputy director of panchayats. He too supported the block development officer and not the panchayats and not the people. Now, this is when people expected, or Goa expected, Chimbel to give up or Chimbel to feel helpless. Chimbel did exactly the opposite. Local leaders like Govind Shirodkar, who I had mentioned, the chairman of the Chimbel biodiversity movement, stepped into the fray. He secured a court stay that halted construction and galvanized the people. That is very important. He went to the courts, he took the battle for justice. The North Goa Principal District and Sessions Court granted an interim stay on the BOD's, the Block Development Officer's order on December 6, 2025. The saga that started in August ended in December, halting construction and pending further hearings. On January 15th, 2026, a few days ago or about a month ago, the same court quashed the construction license issued to the Goa Tourism Development Corporation and set aside orders of both the BDO and the Deputy Director of Panchayats. People won, justice was served. The orders reaffirmed that no activity could proceed at the Unity Mall site. This was undoubtedly a people's victory. This was no knee-jerk protest. It was a principled, grounded struggle, grounded in law, grounded in ecology, and grounded, most importantly, in democratic participation. People like Ajay Kholkarai go back to him, and he's not alone. There are people like him all along. When confusion spread, he kept the messaging intact. He ensured that when anger rose, he insisted on discipline. When exhaustion crept in, he stayed visible, reminding people why they are fighting. When one saw this, one was also reminded of the marathon farmers' protest in Delhi, which went on for months and months and months. People got tired but were tireless. People were pressurized but they refused to buckle. Chimbel actually showed signs of the same people's movement that democracy prides itself on. 44 days they sat. 44 days that changed the outcome. Not violently, not recklessly, but relentlessly. There were sit-ins, there were hunger protests, there were long nights when nothing moved, nothing seemed to move. And still people stayed to the ground, on the ground. Nobody was operating from behind a desk. They were on the ground, speaking to residents, speaking to students, dealing with the police, engaging with the media, keeping the agitation going. Slowly but surely, they got respect. They got respect not only from people in Chimbel, but all over Goa. People realized that this movement was very different. Govind Shirodkar, of course, as I said, took the fight to the legal domain. He actually reminded authorities that the Toyar Lake is not a vacant land, it's a registered wetland. It has historical and ecological significance. He drove home truths that the authorities had forgotten. He knocked on the doors of the courts. The courts listened, the courts heard, and the courts realized that this argument had substance. This is how power was challenged outside the system and inside it simultaneously. The government then shifted strategy from defense to de-escalation. They realized that this movement meant something. They realized that people power is gaining ground. Government representatives began engaging with villagers. Assurances were given that the project would not be forced. This was a different narrative being spoken. Discussion moved around relocation of the Unity Mall and the Prashashan's thumb. This was a marked shift from asserting authority to ensuring that people's will prevailed. Power had to respond. They had no choice. Something rare happened. The villagers, when they received their order in black and white on the 9th of February, they realized that victory had finally come. There were no verbal assurances. There was no political spin. It was written confirmation, black and white, that the Unity Mall would move out, the Prashashan's thumb would move out. The people's stand was acknowledged in black and white. This was not charity. This was not benevolence from the government. This was a state responding to people's power. This was a state responding to people's will. And if this sounds familiar, it should. Flashback 2007, when Goa did this before. When the Goa government introduced the regional plan of 2011, a document that quietly opened our forests, our fields, and our eco-sensitive areas to construction. People did exactly that. Villagers, environmentalists, architects, citizens, 95-year-old grandmothers, 95-year-old grandfathers, they all walked out of their homes and into their village panchayats, the local district headquarters, and that historic rally in Azad Maidan, which changed everything. They flooded the streets. They sat in. They decided that enough is enough. That was the beginning of the Enough is Enough movement. Chimbel is another Enough is Enough movement in the larger ecosystem of Goa saying enough is enough. That agitation in 2007 taught Goa an enduring lesson. When people remain united, informed and unyielding, even a powerful government retreats. Chimbel is that echo of that lesson nearly 2 decades later. But so many echoes will now sound out all over Goa. It tells us, what does this tell us? It tells us that people's movement are not won just by seizing moments. It's not won by drama. It is won by long stretches of quiet resolve. And this is what Chimbelkar showed and Goa showed. It tells every citizen that Gram Sabhas are not just decorative. It shows that peaceful protest still carries power. It shows that persistence beats proximity to power. And it also tells young people something very, very important. You don't need permission to defend your land. You don't need a party flag to demand accountability. You need unity and you need endurance. And that is all you need, because your spirit will give power and wings to the legs and arms of the elderly. Chimbel won not because it shouted once. Chimbel won because it refused to go away, just like Goa did in 2007. People's movement work when they are real, and that is the bottom line of the Chimbel agitation. When you are told protests are useless, remember Chimbel. When you are told governments never listen, remember 2007. When you are told an ordinary power cannot stop extraordinary power, remember Ajay Kholkar. Remember Govind Shirodkar. Remember Oscar Rebello of 2007. Remember these people. Remember Claude Alvarez. Remember all these people. Remember Abhijit Prabhudesai. Remember these people. Govind Shirodkar fought and he made the entire village of Chimbel stand its ground. He is a hero. Ajay Kholkar is a hero. And everybody in Chimbel who fought are heroes. Democracy doesn't survive on silence. It survives when people stand. Change in Chimbel didn't come from power. It came from the people who just refused to leave. Thank you very much. Let there be more Chimbels when injustice is done to Goa.